JKS Jacksonville. The following is a presentation of 17 First Coast News.
Ah, the wonders of corporate downsizing, mega buyouts, company mergers, news affiliation switches. They're all part of making business more efficient. Here at 17 JKS, we report on consolidations like those often. Tonight's face-off is even more personal because we're talking about our own downsizing, including the downsizing of our news department, downsized off the air. Good evening, I'm Terry Casey, and just ahead, you're going to find out why 17 JKS is losing our affiliation with ABC, and how 17 JKS will look in just a matter of days, and how it will change over the next few months, maybe even years. You don't want to miss this, our final edition, next on Face Off.
Know what?
WJKS has been on the air here on the First Coast, more than 20 years of that as an ABC affiliate. As of tonight, after our 11 o'clock newscast, that will no longer be true, at least in terms of the local operation of news. Now, in February, our news reported that ABC said, well, we're going to part ways with you. Then in August, 17 JKS management and ABC announced a parting of ways for good. Our Marie Foley filed this report back then in August when ABC officially announced changing its affiliation to a station in Brunswick, Georgia.
Although ABC has not given formal written notice, WJKS Channel 17 today conceded defeat in its 6-month battle to keep its affiliation. ABC is finalizing a deal with WBSG Channel 21 in Brunswick, Georgia to be the new ABC station for the First Coast. WJKS is now planning its future broadcast schedule.
If we're to assume that we're definitely not an ABC affiliate, then we would be either a pure independent or perhaps affiliate with one of the non-quote, non-Big Three networks like Warner Brothers, for instance.
Although the future of its local news is uncertain, the station says its First Coast News programs will remain at least through the end of the year.
Business as usual. The station is committed to news at least through December 31st of 1996, perhaps longer.
Other ABC programming will still air on Channel 17 until at least February of next year. After that, WBSG will likely take over the affiliation. New management is already in place there, and the station has received approval to build a taller tower to get its signal into Jacksonville. WBSG management says that and other improvements will provide a strong signal to viewers. They're also negotiating to be on all area cable systems. But can a Georgia station serve Florida viewers? WBSG's incoming general manager Leonard Firestone says the station will operate from WBSG's current facility in Brunswick and one in Jacksonville that has not been decided. As for its news plans, he says the station would have a significant local news presence and investment into news. With photographer Charlie Sininger, Marie Foley, 17 First Coast News.
Channel 17 management says the move by ABC to disaffiliate, if you will, with WJKS didn't have anything to do with the station's performance. Our president and general manager, Jim Matthews, is here to sort of, well, tell me a story. Jim, let's start at the beginning if we can. First of all, let me thank you for being so gracious as to take your time to be here. I like the sweater.
Glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
One final time. This thing's been reported since February in various ways, and sometimes the accuracy has not been quite on target, and that is part of the purpose of this program now, is to really straighten it out, to look at the future, also look at the past, and as I said, to tell us a story. How did this begin? Why did
You
it
really
begin?
want the story?
Yeah, I do.
Well, it's all Rupert Murdoch's fault.
Okay.
And believe it or not, there is some truth in that. What happened was when Ron Perlman, who owns Marvel Comic Books and Revlon, bought a bunch of CBS-affiliated television stations, decided to cut a deal with Rupert Murdoch, he flipped them all to Fox. And what happened was all of the fallout from that caused massive affiliation switches all around the country, people fighting to maintain one of the Big Three. The networks got together and said, we can't do this anymore. We can't be this vulnerable ever again. What we need to do is talk to all of our major groups. We need to get them to agree to a 10-year contract so that this can't happen again. So they went out and talked to all of the major groups, and one of those major groups happened to be Allbritton Communications. the owners of, or now the owners of WBSG. They own a fairly respectable station, WJLA in Washington, D.C., which is very important to ABC. So the way we reconstructed it is that ABC goes to a major group and said, we want a 10-year contract with you. And the major group says, being negotiators that they are, that's fine. Here's what we'd like. And they looked at some areas where they thought they might be able to do something for ABC, and they pointed to Birmingham, Alabama, where they did a switch. They pointed to Jacksonville, Florida, where they did a switch. And they pointed to Charleston, where they did a switch. So when you say that it wasn't related to the performance, that's the reason. ABC told us repeatedly on the telephone and in discussions face-to-face in New York, this isn't really an issue of Media General's WJKS in Jacksonville, Florida.
Media General, once again, the owners of 17JKS.
What this is an alliance with and a solidifying of our major groups, our relationships with our major groups.
So hardball business deal.
That's about it, yeah. That's the way it happened.
Did you feel like you've been slapped in the face?
Oh, you betcha. I think any time where this is, a lot of people don't understand the relationship between a network and a station. They think that we're owned by ABC, we're part of ABC. We're not, we're like a franchise. We're owned by a very large communications company, Media General, and ABC is the network that we affiliate with, or that's our franchise. But in that relationship, that partnership becomes pretty strong, and you know those people pretty well, and you work hand in glove. And no one ever suspected or thought that this was going to come out, particularly out of Brunswick. But it did, and at that time, it's interesting to note that the head of affiliate relations had changed for a period of 1 year. And it happened in the span of that person's 1 year of management as the head of affiliate relations. Now, if that person had never gotten the job, would this have happened? I don't know, but I don't think so. I think it had a lot to do with that. I think there was a prior relationship.
Okay, well, you set the stage. So then, Media General and WJKS don't just sit on their haunches and say, well, okay. There was some effort made on management's part to avoid this or prevent this from happening.
Absolutely.
What did you guys do?
Well, for one, we talked a lot with them. We own newspapers around the country. We own WFLA in Tampa. We own WCBD in Charleston. And we were about to acquire another group. And we have since acquired 10 more television stations. So the point that we tried to make is, yes, you are solidifying your relationships with major groups, but we're in the process of becoming a major group. We at that point, unfortunately, this announcement came down verbally in February. In the budgeting for the...
I read that story, by the way, on our 6 o'clock newscast, February 16th, and I still have the script back in my desk.
Well, this also happened to be the year that we had decided, the company had decided, I should say, I'd been after them for a couple of years, to make a major reinvestment in the station and the news product. And they had committed an additional $2 million to the year of 1996, which is a considerable slicing off of profits. They were willing to forego profits to redevelop the station. And unfortunately, that was all going to go away if we didn't have an ABC affiliation.
All right, so we'll obviously, any fight that was waged, we now know has been lost in terms of that. What about the people of 17JKS? What about the future of 17JKS as it relates to you? Some of the things we're going to find out right after this.
Always humble.
Now, do you remember the first time we met?
No.
She's a little feisty.
Oh, you have dirty minds.
Yeah, together, they're a perfect match.
Look at you two, like a salt and pepper shaker.
Willing to try anything.
Hey! Ah!
The secret's out. You never know what will happen when it's live. Live with Regis and Kathy Lee.
9 a.m. on 17JKS.
You are family. You have been, and you will be. And with that in mind, let's find out how what is transpiring here in the studios at 17JKS will affect our family, the viewers. What can they expect to see, and when can they expect to see it?
We are affiliated with the Warner Brothers Television Network, effective full-time, April 1st. transfer is going to take place at 3 o'clock in the morning if anybody wants to get up and watch.
Is April 1st not, doesn't it seem a little ironic to you? I mean, come on, April Fool's Day?
I know it, and maybe we can change it just to avoid that. What happens behind the scenes isn't going to be apparent. Warner Brothers is obviously part of Time Warner Corporation, which is I believe now the largest entertainment conglomerate in the world. They're very deep pockets. They're currently programming 3 nights of prime time, as well as some daytime schedules. We're going to program the rest of prime time with first-run syndication or movies. So other than the big one, which is news. And the way that all happened is the company itself did some research and said that Warner Brothers stations on the whole around the United States, particularly in markets smaller than, say, the 25th market, and we're market rank 54, to maintain a competitive news operation was not economically viable. It takes an awful lot of money. It takes a minimum of a couple $1 million even for this station to maintain a news operation. We were prepared to up that to $3 million, as I mentioned a moment ago, in order to get even more competitive. I don't know, where was I going?
Well, no, you got into something that we were going to get into anyway, and that is the news operation. And it is not economically feasible, according to, well, for Warner Brothers stations to maintain local news.
Yeah,
but the thing I wanted to ask you about, though, is people identify with the local news operation, which in many instances makes the station. That gives any station its presence in the community. How can a Warner Brothers station with no local news operation and no major local tie as a result hope to really be a power?
In that research, if I can go back to that, is when they looked at the Warner Brothers stations and their profitability, because you can't continually run a station that isn't making any money. You can't pay the people, you can't buy the property. So in looking at those operations, they found there wasn't enough money to do the news operation, so it wasn't a point of do you do it or do you not. They found stations that were making a mark in their community, and they did not have news. The other presence that you could do is you can develop personalities that are non-news personalities. You could do Grady Warren's fishing show. You could do a children's club.
Grady's ears just perked up at that, you know.
There's a lot of ways. You could do a homemaker show. You could do a wide variety of things to develop local personalities that are non-news. News requires an awful lot of support.
Yes, it does.
Now, I'm in favor of news, personally. I was in favor of moving ahead with news as a station and becoming an information talk-based station. But again, the research of the company said we're going to move in this other direction.
Now, I have to point out as well that at least, in late January, you plan to retire, not resign, retire.
Exactly.
And strike out on your own as just one of the changes happening here at 17 JKS. As a result, do you have anything to lose by, if you are critical of some of the moves, do you have anything to lose by criticizing them now?
No, I've been very straightforward. I think
So do you agree with all this that's going on?
No, not all of it, certainly not. I want to make a point, though. My decision to retire, from those that really know me well, was made in 1995, before this all happened. I decided that 1996, June was my 20th year running television stations, my 30th year in the television industry, and I was ready to back off the pressures of day-to-day television station operations. So that decision was made in late 95 to be announced in 96. Then all of this happened, and frankly, I told them early on in the year, and then I've decided to stay on because this is a very difficult period. One, it would be difficult to bring someone else in, and if they needed the help through the year, I would be here as long as they needed me. But eventually we had to settle on a date, and that became January 31st.
You know, we were talking about news as well. All right, no local news. Do you foresee Warner Brothers in the future developing, as did Fox, developing any kind of network-type news programming?
Yes, I think for the long run, if you're going to be viable, you have to. You know that Fox still doesn't have a national newscast. We did the Fox local news here, but that was only after how many years of operation? I think with Fox or Warner will have to get up to 7 nights of prime time, and then the very next thing they're going to look at is news, certainly.
When are they going to get up to 7 nights of prime time programming?
They plan on adding 1 per year. So
and they've got 3 now? So in 4 more years, they're going to be at 7 nights? So what does JKS do to survive that? We'll be right back. All right, so now we're going to get another station in Jacksonville, which will then be the ABC affiliate. The Fox News station, WAWS, is cranking up, has its own news department, and will be going on the air in just, well, tomorrow, I believe they start, on Monday. A lot of changes. Their advertising dollars will have to be divvied up, perhaps a little more carefully. How is all this going to change the Jacksonville television market, and again, keeping viewers in mind? Is this going to benefit the viewers? Is there going to be more aggressive news coverage overall? Will the stations have more money to work with, or less?
Certainly it's going to become more competitive. There isn't going to be less news to watch because we're going out of the news business. Allbritton is a news company. They're going to make a major commitment. I think they've got to work out yet how they're going to cover the entire market. The present plan is to operate from right near their existing location near Brunswick, which puts a grade B signal just a little south of I-10, which really
Grade B meaning?
Well, that's normally considered the extent of the signal of the television signal. After that, it declines very rapidly. And there's a lot more territory to the south that needs to be covered. Now, there's a couple of ways to do that, and hopefully they will find a way if they're going to do a job in the market. But never, they're going to be aggressive in news. Fox is making a serious commitment to news. The numbers of newscasts will probably grow overall in the market, even though we're not in that business at this point in time. So the public will benefit in a sense. As they become more competitive, more resources will be plowed into it. The fact that a Warner Brothers station is now being introduced into Jacksonville proper means that the viewing options are growing, particularly off-air. If you're off-air, you haven't had this available. And on cable, it now becomes part of the basic tier package.
Now, what about WJKS and one that has lingered for years, that the station isn't also ran? And has a revolving door. The first day I arrived in Jacksonville, I was having lunch and met someone at a Shoney's, which is now closed, ironically, and met someone. They said, "How long are you going to be here?" Because they'd watched anchors and other people on the air at 17 JKS come and go, like through a revolving door. The station has to do something to shake that, but this latest change would only seem to reinforce that. What can be done?
Well, nothing needs to be done with regard to news. The station, if the term also ran, generally applied to the news, because the rest of the programming tend to be very competitive. We were very competitive in prime time. We were competitive in soap operas. We're competitive in morning shows. We win #1 in many time slots. We're #1 with Rosie. We were #1 with Ricky.
Why do you think the news was also ran? And I know it is in terms of numbers. This is a great subject.
It's one that we agonized over. I've been here 7 years. Obviously, the news has been in business for 30 years. I think it's almost fulfilling prophecy. There's a thing that happens with stations like this. The last station into the market comes in, wants to do as good a job as anyone else, and they put the money in, they put the resources in, and so they build and they try to attack the big guys that were there. And all of a sudden they find that it isn't that easy. It takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of losses to make true that commitment. At some point they back off and say, we can't afford this anymore, and they withdraw those resources. So there's been a promise broken with the community. They end up selling the station, a new company buys it. They come in, we're going to make a splash. We're going to bring in helicopters, and we're going to bring in trucks, we're going to double the staff. They do the same thing. They pump the resources in, they make that commitment. In 2 years, they want to get paid back for their investment, and it doesn't happen. So what do? They withdraw the resources again. This all happened before Media General even bought it. And then it happened again when Media General had it. So you've got this curve, and withdrawn support, at least the community perceiving that you're withdrawing things. You made a commitment to us and you pulled back on it. And then you've got the constant reinforcement in particularly the print media. When did you read an article that didn't say third place newscast WJKS? They just said it time after time after time, and then perception becomes reality.
Of course, that was accurate.
Yeah, it was.
You know?
It was. But
I have to say, and I'm a little bit biased here.
Yeah.
And that's just what you were getting to. I think we're both a little biased, but at the same time, trying to look at this really objectively. Channel 17's newscast, and I'm not talking about the anchors necessarily here, our reporters, our photographers, we had top flight people who, since February, since all this thing broke, and particularly since summer, have gone on to other markets. Obviously, they have to make a living. But yeah, the quality was there, but we didn't get the numbers.
Right. There was never enough sampling to keep it rolling. But this is not unusual. There are stations like this all over the country. This is the hardest thing in the world, is to change viewing habits. I had a station in Tallahassee, for instance, very similar to this. It was a UHF against the big gun Vs. My anchor was Marianne Laughlin, who went on to CNN fame, Tom Mees, who went on to ESPN fame. These are household words.
Yeah.
And Brian Norcross, or Brian Scott, with the hurricane man from Miami. He was my weather guy. They were all three there at the same time. We couldn't get arrested. And these people, in their very next job, went on to national prominence. So, was it the people? No way. Was it their work? No way. It was a perception.
So you go figure. Yeah, and perception, as you indicated a moment ago, sometimes becomes reality. What's next for you?
I'm looking at slowing down a little bit, and everybody asks me that.
That's going to drive you nuts. Don't give me that.
Well, it may in the long haul, but I have what I call my box full of wonderful options. Since late 1995, when I made my decision, I began accumulating ideas. I got into television originally because it was a combination of show business and business, and it was one way to meld the two things that I enjoyed doing. A lot of show business has gone out of it. It's become a lot more business. But I'm looking maybe to find a way to put a little show business back into it. So what form that takes, that's still to be answered, but there's lots of time.
A lot of people have asked me on the street, what about you, meaning me?
What are you going to do?
I'm looking to go into a new direction. I've been in news for, oh my gosh, I'm not this old. I've been in news since late 1968. And I've had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience that I would not trade for the world. Maybe it's time to shift directions. I'd like to stay in Jacksonville with my family, do some voice work, narration, that sort of stuff. Tori Ryden, of course, is in Boston. Marie Foley is going to Houston. Folks are being scattered to the winds. I wish there was time to say thank you to so many people, all of whom are you. Kirsten Walker, of course, who has produced Face Off for quite a while. And I guess, in a nutshell, turning point is what this is all about. But without ends, without beginnings, without change, life would be pretty boring, wouldn't it? Thank you, Jacksonville. Good night.